Good evening. Welcome to the City Council meeting on Wednesday, August 3rd, 2016. Can I have the roll call, please?
Dan Carey.
Present.
Peg Coniff. Here. Salem Derby.
Present.
Jennifer Hayes.
Here.
JP Kaczynski.
Here.
Joe McCoy.
Here.
Dan Rist.
Here.
Tamara Smith. Joy Winnie.
Here.
Okay, could we please all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Could I have a motion for the approval of the minutes of
So
July
moved.
6th?
Second.
A motion, a second for the approval of the minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? And then those abstain? I'm an abstention.
Abstain.
So we have 3 abstentions. Do you have that, Barb?
Yep.
Okay. Public speak time. Is there anyone here from the public who would like to address the council for something? Wait, nothing on a public hearing, but who would like to address the council? Please come up and state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. Fran Root, Hendrick Street. You'll have to bear with me because I was supposed to be here last month for this, but it's still kind of pertinent. Hi, Mr. President and councilors. Now, I admit that I'm not the brightest light on the street, so you will need to pay attention if you want to see where I'm going with this. Tonight, I want to talk to you about a couple of sidewalks and maybe one imaginary one. Sidewalk number 1 is on the bridge on Hendrick Street. They're both about the same cubic footage. Built to all ADA standards, goes from one driveway to the next, almost. The other sidewalk is between Plain and Phelps Street, on the east side of Line Street. Looks like it was built on a lunch break with surplus material from some nearby job. One abused, one used. I do try to support common sense and even the ADA, but here is my dilemma here and now. I read somewhere that Plain Street will be repaved this summer so the drivers can gain maximum velocity going from Line to Hendrick. So I asked Joe, if you all know Joe, if it was possible to add a cheap functional sidewalk in simple steps like from Matthew to Apple Tree Lane. 4 p.m. drivers probably know me, as that idiot dad that walks 2 abreast with Alan, who does think the road is his also. Joe's response: we have no money. I promise to continue to support and walk with my son 2 abreast as long as I am able, whether you find the money and use common sense or not. As an afterthought, Alan carries an extra chromosome on his walks. Try throwing that in your knapsack. Then I say I'll be back. Now I'm coming up. Now pretend it's your public hearing. Number 2 will prove the thought that I am an idiot. I read in a local paper about a raise proposal, and I think you all deserve as much. But I do not think using Northampton or Springfield as examples is wise. I also read in the Boston Globe that a counselor from Springfield served 3 terms, then won as mayor, and now collects a pension totaling over $750,000, while earning $200,000 a year per year salary. This makes Joe's response, we have no money, really serious. I call it allocation of limited resources. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frank. Okay, if there's anyone else here for public speak time, please feel free to come to the podium. Not seeing any. Okay, communications, elected officials, boards, committees, and correspondence. We have none. Mayor communication? And Mayor has no communications. Standing committees, finance, Councilor Rist.
Finance Committee has no report, and we will not be meeting in August.
Okay, public safety, Councilor Hayes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was actually going to say on announcements that Park 180 is having their open house tonight, and it is an open house until 9 p.m., and all of City Council is invited to that. Public safety, Met 2 weeks ago with an on-site visit looking at the request to allow on-street parking on the section of Pleasant Street. We were joined by the head of the DPW, Joe Babinski, and we were also joined by, what's the chief's name?
Captain Bob Alberti.
Captain Bob Alberti, and who was the other police officer? Who was
Officer
it?
Chad Alexander.
And Officer Chad Alexander. And we were also joined by assorted business owners that were there, and we did a good walkthrough all the way up the street, and we had a small, brief meeting afterwards to discuss that parking on Pleasant Street and also a possible no parking area on the corner of Prospect Street. We need another meeting because we've decided to get in contact with some other business owners and to make sure that residents on that street are aware that we're talking about this as well. So we need some more public input on that. And that meeting is to be determined. The street acceptance protocol is ongoing. And did you want me to address the new business with the mobile light pole location?
Sure, you can do that.
I would make a motion to move the review of the mobile lighting pole location cell tower request to public safety.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, and a second, to move the mobile lighting, I guess, pole location, cell tower request to public safety. Any additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, motion passes.
Thus concludes public safety.
Okay, appointment.
Actually, Mr. President,
Extension.
I'd like to make 2 extensions for the review of the acceptance protocol and looking at the request of the on-street parking on a section of Pleasant Street.
60 days.
60 days.
60-day extension, okay. Is there a second for that?
Second.
Motion and second for 60-day extension for both the street acceptance protocol and the street parking. All those additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Abstain? Motion passes.
Now I think we're done.
Okay. Yes.
May I ask Counselor
Sure.
Hayes a question related to that? When you looked at the street protocol, was there conversation around visibility coming out of like Eastworks, looking up and down the street and that kind of stuff? Okay.
Absolutely,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Appointments. Councilor Winnie.
Thank you. We did not have an appointment subcommittee meeting as our chair is on vacation and was out of town to set one. So we are bringing this mayoral appointment to the full city council. The person that has requested to be appointed to the committee is Rachel Phillips. She has an extensive background in artistry, performing. She's directed. She's been a producer of off-Broadway shows. She has an extensive, in one paragraph, a very extensive experience that would fit well in the ECA board. So I will throw this out for any questions before I make the motion of any counselors.
Just a reminder, the new council, the way the charter is written, that if we don't vote on an appointment, it automatically is an appointment within 45 days. So whether we vote on that or not, will be approved. But I think it's probably better housekeeping wise if we vote on this, especially when we have enough information here that she's. Councilor Rist.
Being in the business of the arts, I want to thank Rachel Phillips for stepping forward. Reading her resume, I'm pretty glad that someone of this character is willing to serve on our arts committee, and I hope the council will approve her.
I'd like to echo Councilor Rist's comments. It's great that someone of this caliber steps forward and is willing to volunteer for East Hampton.
You want the mayor to say anything? Because I don't have a motion.
We're done.
Did you want to say anything? Are you aware of this appointment, Mayor Kadgen?
She put
Bring it forward.
It's her appointment.
So,
I hope so.
Just, I think it would be helpful if I just mentioned that I obviously met with Rachel, and I met with her with Julie, our new arts coordinator. And I think for Rachel Phillips, she had already been to 3 consecutive ECA Plus meetings. And she actually had been adding some really helpful suggestions And Julie was very excited about having her appointed, as I was, as also our city planner had mentioned some of the suggestions that she had said at the meetings. So if that helps at all.
Councilor Hayes.
I also met her with a member of the ECA board, and she did seem very enthused and knowledgeable about what she was stepping into, and had said that she had been to a couple meetings already, so.
Okay, so unless any questions, I entertain a motion.
So pursuant to section 3.3 of the East Hampton City Charter, following positions are hereby recommended for appointment approval. City Council is looking for a recommendation to name Rachel Phillips to the ECA Plus appointment with the term of expiration of December 31st, 2018.
Okay, a motion, a second for the approval, recommendation of Rachel Phillips, ECA Plus. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
Thank you. I don't see any new appointments, so I will, at this point, say there is no more to report on, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you. Ordinance, Councilor Derby.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ordinance Committee has been relatively active. We did meet on July 13th and July 20th. We discussed food truck ordinance, and we also had a public information session on plastic bags. We're still moving forward with that, still gathering information. So look for some meetings coming in the near future. Since one of our counselors isn't present tonight, I'm not going to set a date for our next meeting, but it should be soon. We are going to try to hammer out the food truck ordinance. After discussion with quite a few parties, I think we're getting relatively close to what it needs to look like, and what our role in regulating is going to be. So that being said, I do have some housekeeping issues here. So I would like to ask for an extension for sign ordinance for 90 days in the form of a motion.
Second.
Okay, a motion, a second for 90-day extension relating to the sign ordinance. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
I would like to request a 30-day extension on food truck ordinance in
Okay.
the form of a motion.
Motion, a second for a 30-day extension on the food truck ordinance. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
And I would finally like to ask for a 60-day extension on the plastic bag ordinance
Okay.
in the form of a motion.
Second.
A motion, a second for a 60-day extension on the single-use plastic bag ordinance. Additional questions or
Any
comments?
question?
No, not a question. I want something after the vote.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just want to be sure you were recognized.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
That concludes.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Okay.
As do I.
For Counselor Salem.
Oh.
Counselor Derby. Counselor
Yes.
Salem.
Counselor
In the food ordinances, the food truck ordinances that you're looking at, is there anything in there allowing the food trucks to park on the public sidewalk?
So that is exactly where we're going, is where they're going to park. That's one of the few. See, right now, one of the things with food trucks is most of the regulations around food trucks are going to be enforced and set by the Board of Health. But where the city, from the ordinance side, comes in, we're going to be looking at where they can be and for how long. So that is exactly what we are crafting right now. As far as sidewalks go, I would say that no. They would not be allowed on sidewalks unless there was some extenuating circumstances and permission was granted through a process that we're still creating.
Well, all right, so I observed one the other night in town that was parked on the sidewalk, and it really, if somebody was coming down that part of the sidewalk with a wheelchair or something, they probably would have had to have gone partly out into the road, and I just kind of had a little bit of an issue with that.
Right.
So,
Yeah, sidewalks would be
I just want to say
off
that we
limits,
need
I
to
would
be
say.
very careful about that, and to make sure that the sidewalks are for pedestrians, and that nobody should be parking on the sidewalks.
Right, and I would say even without a food truck ordinance, that would not be
Nobody should
allowed
be doing
if
it,
you
yeah.
had called the police.
Yeah.
But remember, private property,
Well, private
they can
property,
park
yeah.
on private property.
No
So as
problem.
long as they're not obstructing
Right.
the public right of way, then
No problem, yeah, I don't care, yeah.
Councilor Hayes, I saw you next. Interesting.
So this food truck ordinance, is this to allow the food trucks to have a permit that will last for like an extended period of time?
Yeah, that's one of the things that is part of our exploration.
We were discussing, do you do it on a per instance basis, on a monthly basis, on a seasonal, for the summer,
Right.
or for a full year? So all of that was being discussed, and I think there are merits to each one, and then there are fees associated with that, which would go to the city to maintain inspectional services and those sorts of things.
Okay. So, yes, Ken.
Counselor Derby, so just for my education, so this ordinance is because we currently do not have one?
We do not have one that specifically addresses the food trucks. We do have one that addresses mobile vendors, which is not necessarily applicable.
Okay.
You could apply it. It doesn't make much sense.
So today, if the food trucks we see around are really,
They're not unregulated. They have to go through the Board of Health. They have to get a permit from the city.
we're just going to
but
put some governance around
there's no
it.
restriction about where they can park. There's no restriction other than general parking restrictions. There's no restriction of how long they can park there if it's not
Right.
stated. So those are some of the things that we're looking at.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Councilor Rist, did you have a recommendation?
I was going to say, I don't think they're allowed to park on a sidewalk that's part of a public way, even if it's in front of a private residence. The sidewalk is
No sidewalks.
attached to a street, it's city property. And they should not be allowed to park there now. And the ordinance would make that clear, of course, but
Councilor Hayes.
What fees do we currently charge?
It would be, so right now, if someone's going to bring a food truck into the city, they would pay any fees associated with the health department. And then I believe they also pay the mobile, they don't pay the mobile vendor ordinance? Okay, so just the Board of Health fees.
And do you know what that number is? Like it's a per instance?
I can't remember offhand. I have it written down in my notes. Yeah, I think it is an annual.
I don't think it's a.
It's not very
It's not, it like covers the very small amount.
Yeah.
I'd hazard a guess, $25 to $40
It
is
was in that
the fee.
neighborhood.
In that neighborhood, it's not like
Oh, okay.
$200 or $300
No, I had
as
no
far as I
idea.
recall.
Any additional questions? Okay, thank you.
Then that concludes.
That concludes, okay. Proper Kwasinski. Councilor Kwasinski, proper.
No report?
Okay, Rules and Government Relations, Councilor Rist.
yes, Mr. President, I'd like to bring forward the different role of each committee, the mission statements which we put together and amended. We didn't move it last time because there was a number of councilors absent. I'd like to bring it forward and vote on it this evening with the caveat that any time, if any committee feels that, let's work on this some more and you want to resubmit a mission statement, amended one, you can do that. So rather than keep this on the plate for a long time, I think we're real close on these. I think the wording has been changed as you requested for a number of them, and I'd like to move it forward and get them in the rules. But knowing that any committee can change it, if you see, hey, this should be in there because suddenly something comes up and you think, it might have been good to have it there. So if it's all right with the council, I'm going to make a motion that we adopt these. I move that the City Council adopt new additions to Rules 11, namely Rule 11D, the role of the Public Safety Subcommittee, Rule 11F, the role of the Finance Subcommittee, Rule 11G, the role of the Ordinance Subcommittee, Rule 11H, the role of the Appointment Subcommittee, and Rule 11I, the role of the Property Subcommittee, and that the current rules 11F and 11G be renumbered 11J and 11G as requested by the council clerk.
Second.
Okay, well, motion a second to redefine the mission statements for the 6 committees as Councilor Rist just outlined. Any additional questions or comments?
Just a comment that Rule 11E, there was no change in that, so it's staying as is, which is the role of the Rules and Government Relations Committee.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
That concludes.
Okay, thank you. We took care of some of the new business. We do have one other thing, just the warrant that we have to notify, certify as a city council. The primary is September 8th. Voting will be from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. There will be representative in Congress, councilor, senator in general court, representative general court, and sheriff will be on the primary ballot. So I would accept a motion to approve the warrant for the September 8th primary
Second.
election.
So moved.
A motion, a
So moved.
second for, and a second. A motion, a second for that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes. Is there, unless, any comments, Counselor?
I think we skipped the announcement section, and I had noticed that,
Oh.
if I may,
Yeah.
just say congratulations to the 9 and 10 softball
State
players who were state
state
champions here at East Hampton. And that's absolutely terrific. It's not often that we have state champions, so congratulations.
Awesome.
And speaking of champions, you're probably all aware of Julie from Small Oven winning the
Yes.
baking award, a national award. So more kudos to East Hampton. Keep it up, great. Okay, unless any more comments or questions, we can adjourn. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. See you in September.
Sign the warrant.